Hello and welcome to the Late Night Cooldown. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine, and this is a special episode. My birthday episode. I just turned 21 at the time of recording an hour and 1 minute ago. So this is going to be 21 lessons that I've learned throughout my 21 years of life experience. Let's get right into it, because you already know I hate long-ass intros. So, number one, and this is in no particular order. So, number one, don't take your friends for granted. Cherish the time you spend with the ones who matter the most. Right? So, I think this is very, typical of younger people, because we don't have that wisdom and experience. We often take for granted, the people that we met, that we, see the most, that we love the most. I've had a couple of friends who've passed away, and you never think it's gonna be someone especially when you're young. But even just, as time goes on and you get older, people drift apart from each other, and, you never know you're in the good times until they're done. Number two on my list is time does move fast. It's not just a saying. So learn to slow down sometimes and have fun and enjoy the moment and the experience. And this is a very major one, because when you're young, time feels like it goes on forever, like an hour. Just sitting through an hour of whatever feels like the longest, experience. But now being 21, and as I've gotten older, I can sit for an hour, no problem. I can sit and do my podcast episode for an hour pretty easily, and it doesn't even feel like an hour has gone by. And I'm like, holy shit, we're already at 44 minutes, or holy shit, we're already at an hour and a half, and I haven't even said everything I wanted to say. Now I gotta wrap it up. Time does move fast as you get older, and it's not just something like your mom says or your dad says or whatever. It's true. So, being able to be like, okay, let's put the phone down, and, let's just, experience this experience. We don't need to capture everything, even though if there's no photo or video, it didn't happen, kind of thing. But no, for real, stop and smell the roses, take an extra, minute or whatever, and admire the beauty of the world that we're in. We don't always need to be on the go 100% of the time. It's okay to relax and experience something for the sake of experiencing that thing, Number three on the list, you'll move on. The worst and the best times move and become distant memories. Do not drown in sorrow or happiness, because no matter what it is, this too shall pass. So basically, detachment. The time periods of my life, I've gone through some of the most hardest and darkest moments, and there were times where I'm like, this is never gonna fucking end. And they did. There were, not as much and not as long, but there were some good times where, I'm like, this will never end. I'm gonna, this is the best ever. I'm gonna live the best life ever. And those things ended too. So not being attached to, and this is not to say not to, care and, be an active participant throughout the worst and the best phases of your life. But this is to say, don't be so attached to the way things are, because the way things are is always going to change through your own perception, better or worse. So not being attached to the outcome, not being attached to the situation or the person or the things, because they're gonna, change, grow, and evolve, or leave your life. It's not going to, always be the same, which for me personally, like, I love the fact that, things are always changing, especially, in this more mature perception that I have. Like, it keeps life fun and fresh. I don't like stagnancy. I don't like staying in the same place for too long, literally, physically, but also like mentally. Like, I'm always looking to grow, always looking to change and evolve in ways that support my evolution and where I want to go in life. And so I'm very grateful for that. Number 4, this is a big one. Let people be who they are. Take note and evaluate if who they are is someone you even want to keep around. And if it's not, let them go. I think I personally, just because I grew up with someone, like, I would keep them around, or I would give them so many chances to fuck me over. And, what they did with those chances, they fucked me over time and time again. And, it wasn't until I, put some distance between me and, shitty fucking people that, like, my life actually felt better and was worth living. Like, I've had people, like, nasty, two-faced, jealous fueled friends, pretend to be someone that cared about me when in reality they were talking shit about me and, doing whatever. So when I was able to take a step back, and whether by choice or by force, like, the universe forced me to, like, take a step back from these people. And I was able to actually look at them objectively and be like, I don't even like you as a person. I don't hate people ever. I'm never like, I fucking hate you and, like, I hate your existence. Like, I'm not like that. But I have love for everyone, but my likeness meter, like how much I like you, is really dependent on who you are as a person. Like, I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what kind of clothes you wear. I don't care about that kind of shit. I care about your character. I care how you treat people who have nothing to offer you. I care how you treat me when I have nothing to offer you, or if, just based purely on who we are as human beings. If you can't treat me with decency and respect, and you can't treat others with decency and respect, then you can stay the fuck away from me. And, that's on period. Like, you could be a billionaire. You could be, always, dripped out in designer clothes. And, like, I really do not give a fuck. I'd rather go hang out with a kind homeless person than hang out with some stuck up bitch. I don't care who you are, like, that's just me. And I say this not from, I'm like this perfect person, but I like me. And, I think I'm a pretty amazing person, literally and 100% factually. So, I hold myself to a very high standard of being and living, and I hold the people that are close to me to that same standard. And if they can't meet it, then you're gone. You're bye-bye, especially now, like, being 21. Now, like, you don't get to not meet my standards of who I keep around me and be able to stay around me. Like, that's just not happening anymore. So yeah, I guess I would be like a little other lesson, like, have fucking standards. Standards are gonna you may be not the most, you may not have the most friends, you may not have, a partner or whatever, romantically, but your standards will protect you when your feelings won't. I feel sometimes, I want, a big group of friends. I feel like I want to, have a partner, but, have I met someone who, has even met my standards? And my standards aren't like, you got to make $100,000 a year, but my standards are like, you got to be attractive to me, and I got to be attractive to you. We got to have, similar goals and visions and desires that, like, that we want to, have and achieve in our lifetime. Like, you gotta have a good original personality. Your life can't be, revolved around solely revolved around other people's opinions. I hate a bitch who, can't do something because what are people going to think? Like, I don't give a fuck what other people are going to think. You know, I'm not that person who's, basing my choices and my actions in my life based on how people are going to perceive it for the majority of time. Like, I'm not going to, you know, showcase the worst of me or what I'm feeling. But, and in that sense, like, because that's not for everybody, but, I am going to, make life decisions based on what I want to do in my life and not what, grandma, whoever, or, you know, person down the street thinks, that's what I mean. But, I hold, like, if you want to be my friend, if you want to be in my inner circle, like, you gotta, not be a subpar person based solely on my standards. You may be a good person outside of my standards to other people's standards, but I hold myself to a standard and I expect to, have the closest people to me also to that standard. That doesn't mean that you can't be who you are, but who you are naturally just has to vibe with me, has to be to a certain standard, and it's not egotistical. It's just when I've realized being a high quality, authentic human being, everybody wants that, but not everybody deserves to be around it. That's what I mean. So let's go on to number 5. Enjoy yourself and don't be so hard on yourself. Allow yourself to take breaks, mess up, course correct, and learn through lived experiences. Yeah. It's taken me, almost 21 years to, learn this, but learning to enjoy myself for myself, like, that's another like thing that, younger people tend to do is, we base our wants, what things we want to do and how we want to dress and, whatever, and things that we want to, go do, whether that be like sports or, our educational career, whatever. We tend to, when you're young, you tend to base that based on what's cool or popular or what's acceptable. Or what your friends think, and learning to enjoy myself for myself. Like, I like going to the park and, watching the animals and the birds. I like going for long ass fucking walks and checking out new stores that I haven't been to before. I like going to the park at 1 a.m. to record a podcast episode. I like my Red Bull. I like smoking cigarettes. I like vaping. I like going to hang out at the library for a bit. I like to go traveling. I like to do spontaneous and fun things that are not always pre-planned. I like planning out fun things to do. I like, celebrating the small wins, but also, celebrating, myself and my milestones. Like, these are things that I like animals. I like the spiritual side of life. I think it's very important and it's also very interactive with how we live our day-to-day lives. I like psychology. I like all of these different things, and it's not for anybody else. If I find people who also like doing the same things, that would be wonderful. But when I do the things that I like to do, it doesn't have to make sense or be acceptable by other people's standards, and allowing myself to take breaks. It's, you can't always be go 100% of the time. You're going to crash out. You're going to burn out. You're going to cause serious mental and psychological strain on yourself if you're always on the go 24 fucking 7. Like, stress is literally how people are dying today. It's not due to like some wild animal. Like, the killer is stress. So like, being able to be like, hey, we did what we could today. We did the best that we could. We got, some of our priorities done today. Let's set aside, let's just scroll on our phone for a bit. Let's go for a nice walk. Let's go do this. Let's just mentally let it go for it, and we'll save it for the morning. Being able to, consciously do that for yourself, it will bring immense benefits. And I've definitely, when I get my shit done for the day, and I can be like, okay, now we're just in the flow state. Now we're just calm. Now we're just relaxing. We're not up to anything in particular at this point in time until that point of time comes. So we don't got to worry anymore. We don't got to stress about it anymore. Being able to mentally do that has done like wonders for my mental health. And also, feeling like you deserve, you deserve to have a break. You deserve, you know what I mean? You know what I mean. Allow yourself to mess up, especially when you're young. It's okay to try something and have it not work out. It's okay to, to be doing something and to mess up and then learn from that mistake and correct it and do better as you go along. It's okay to do that. No one told you that you have to be, well, let me rephrase. No one said it was, a rule that you have to be 100% perfect. And if someone has told you that, then they're probably not the best people to be around or listen to anyways. But let me be the one to tell you, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to do it to the best of your ability. And you have to be teachable. You have to learn. You have to do better next time. That's life. You're not going to be perfect. You're not going to get it 100% correct. You're going to get lucky sometimes, and it's going to work out really well. And that's amazing. But, prepare for the worst and, prepare. Be prepared. That is, major. And learn through lived experiences. If I saw this quote the other day, and it was like, if the goal is experience, no matter the outcome, it's a positive, so no matter what I do, no matter what ends up happening with, whatever I'm working on in my life, if the goal is to have and gain more experience, whatever the outcome is, that is a benefit, not, a cost negative, Keep that in mind. A little tidbit. Let's move on to number 6. If you don't do it, it won't get done. Pretty simple. If you don't do it, it won't get done. If you want a certain kind of life, if you want a certain kind of experience or a relationship, whether that's friends, family, intimate relationships, if you don't do it, if you don't work towards it, if you don't actively seek it out, it's not going to happen. I think a lot of people get stuck in the mental trap of thinking that, the longer they wait, the more closer something comes. When in reality, the longer you wait, the more farther it goes away. It's like, you can look at it as like you're in the middle of the ocean on a little boat, and you're whatever it is that you want in life or for yourself, whatever that is the shoreline, and you're in the middle of the water on this little boat. If you don't actively figure out how to paddle or get to the shoreline, however that, if you're paddling or swimming or whatever, if you don't consciously and actively get yourself to that shoreline, you're just going to drift farther and farther away from it until, you're going to end up on a different shoreline, if a different one, is out there. 7, do not wait. There is no right time and a perfect moment to do anything. There is either right now or never. And this is another common, mental trap that people fall into, is that, I'm going to wait till New Year's. I'm going to wait till, I get the job, or I get the money, or I get this, or I get that, your actions your action aligned goals, like, the actions that are aligned with your goals should not be dependent on a set of circumstances, because those circumstances are circumstantial. You're never going to have the perfect, even if you did have the perfect circumstances, those aren't going to last forever because it's circumstantial. It's only for that moment. If you wait for the right set of circumstances, it's never going to get done. You're never going to complete it. And more often than not, you're never going to fucking start it in the first place. So don't wait for a set of circumstances to align within yourself and go after what you want. And like it says, like, it's now or never. Like, if you're working towards being wealthy or healthy, the first step starts right now. And it's a step. You're not jumping the whole staircase in one night. If you can do that, by all means, but usually it's one step at a time. So you can take that step now, or you can continue waiting till tomorrow, and tomorrow never arrives, which they also don't really tell you. 8, take calculated risks towards something you want. Don't be reckless in your pursuit of your goals, but also don't be so afraid of getting things perfect that you get paralyzed and never make any moves. This is, a major one. If you are a perfectionist and everything has to be perfect, everything, and it has to be this certain way, you're not gonna, not sorry, but you're not gonna get anywhere in life on perfectionism. Action outperforms perfectionism every single time. And action often kills perfectionism, because once you get something going, you're more inclined to get it done. The more I focus on the minor details that honestly don't fucking matter, the more time I'm wasting on, if I get something done, and, strive to do it the best that you can, but sometimes good enough is fucking good enough. It doesn't gotta be, perfect. We'll keep that simple. 9, drugs and alcohol are overrated. And I don't just say this as, being in, 14 months of recovery, but I even thought this before getting sober and entering recovery. Drugs and alcohol are overrated. Like, you watch in movies, like when someone does cocaine, it's like, whoa. When someone drinks, it's like at the club, and it's like, oh my God, like she got the cute guy and a messy night, and then now they're going for brunch in the morning. Like, it's never as fun, it's never as glamorous as the movies make it out to be. And especially, being a young adult or a teenager, and seeing these things growing up on television or in movies, the glamorization of drugs and alcohol. Like, the reason why it's glamorized is, 1, it's fun to watch, and 2, it's so that you go and, spend your money playing at the casino and at the bar and, doing whatever. But, ask anybody after, a night out of, heavy partying, and ask if they think life's more worth living. And then go talk to someone who just did their workout at 4 a.m., did a 2-hour workout in the morning, and ask if life is worth living, and see who has a better perspective. Also, cocaine is not that fun. All of the other ones, I will say mushrooms is worth it. Acid can be worth it. I am not endorsing anyone doing drugs, but I'm just, stating my own opinion. Alcohol, if you're not an alcoholic, is, a pretty fun one too. But I digress. 10, be kind to yourself and others. The golden rule, it's true. First, like, if you want to be able to be kind and genuine towards others, you got to be kind and genuine towards yourself. And it really starts in yourself first. You're not going to love someone until you love yourself. And I mean love. I don't mean like, I don't mean obsess. I mean love. And you're not going to, be able to do that for anybody until you can afford yourself the love that you deserve. And until you do that, like, you're like, that's part of the reason why I'm working on myself. I'm a work in progress. I do love myself, like, probably the most I've ever have in my life right now. But, I'm not necessarily where I want to be when I, want to bring in a relationship into my life again, like a serious one. Because I want the best of the best. If I'm gonna, dedicate that amount of time, energy, and love towards someone, like, it's gonna be worth it. And at this point in time, I haven't found someone who I would consider it to be worth it. Because standards. I don't just date to date. I don't date because I never needed anybody to feel like, I need this person. I don't need people. There's people I want to be around, and there's people that I would prefer to have in my life, but I'm not a needer. I'm perfectly good, and I was good before you, and I'll be good after you, and I'll be good during you. You know. 11. Work hard, work smart, and play hard. If you can play hard while you work hard, perfect. Yeah, like, a big lesson I've learned in that sentiment is that, the playing does not feel as good if the work doesn't match it or supersede it. Like, when you spend a certain amount of time working towards whatever it is in your life, and then then you have, like, your dedicated playtime. Like, the playtime feels worth it, feels earned, it feels deserved, and those feelings of deserving and earning it feel a lot better than just, this is what it is normally. Earn your playtime. 12. To live a life no one has lived, you got to do things that no one has done. I'm on the precipice of a beautiful, extravagant life, and no one's lived my life quite as I have. I'm sure there's parallels and similarities, but what I want and how I'm going to achieve it, which I don't always know. Sometimes that's like for something bigger than myself to play out. But to live a life no one has lived, you got to do things that no one has done. So I'm not going to become a billionaire and that's my goal. My end goal is to be a billionaire. Or not my end goal, but that's like that's the target, we'll say. I'm not going to get to that goal by doing what everyone else is doing. There has to be some sort of uniqueness to my way of getting there, combined with practicality and a whole lot of fucking prayer. So yeah, I'll just leave it like that. 13. It's better to be alone than to be with or around the wrong person or people. Not everyone is for you or on par with you, and that's okay. It's often better to go through periods of isolation than to submit yourself to people who don't resonate with you. It's not always where you are, but who you're with that makes life's challenges worth it. So yeah, this goes to the sentiment of being in a room full of people but still feeling alone. Like, it's better to just literally be alone than to be surrounded by, a bunch of people who, don't value who you are, who don't celebrate who you are. The people that, I want around me, love me for who I am, not what I can give them or not what kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's a friendship, a relationship, whatever, in whatever context you want. It's supposed to be, soul to soul, like me and you. Not me, my money, and you. Not me, my status, and you. Not this and this, and, and it goes both ways, right? I value the people I surround myself with. I love the people I surround myself with. And, I'm not gonna, just because someone has status or money or, whatever, I think I can, take from or benefit from. Like, I'm not just like, and I say that because, like, that's how some people are, is that that's how they decide who they keep around them, is what they can get. And I'm not that person, and I don't, want people like that around me. You might have noticed, like, there's a lot of, emphasis on my list of, like, people. The people you keep around are important, and that significance of those people are going to determine, how your life feels and looks like. Hang out with 5 losers, you'll be the 6th. I'm not saying, like, I'm saying what I'm saying, okay? Like, I'm not, like, there's no room for ulterior meanings. There's no hidden meanings. Like, what I say. It's not, there's nothing else to it. 14, everything will always work out in the end, and if it's not, and if it hasn't yet, it isn't the end. So yeah, like, everything really does work out in the end, and, if things haven't worked out yet, it's not the end, and then it's that simple. Period. 15, self-care and routine is key and foundational for maintaining good mental health. Like, and I'm talking about skincare. I'm talking about, moisturizing and face masks. I'm talking about getting yourself some crystals and some sage or some incense. There's 5 things that, like, you got to do when you're feeling low. You need something good to smell, something nice to look at, something good to feel on your skin, something good to eat, like chocolate or something good to taste, right? And something good to sing and hear. 6 things. And routine, like having a self-care routine, you wake up, like for me, I wake up, I do my morning weigh-in. Sometimes I'll hop in the shower, but I usually go get a cup of coffee or some tea and, wake up, and then I'll go shower or whatever. And then, at the end of the day, brush my teeth in the morning and stuff. I don't always, but I don't always brush my teeth and floss at the end of the day. Like, I usually have a pretty busy day, and, I keep my mouth pretty clean. So I don't, like, it's not like detrimental if I don't do it twice a day, which is like, even once a day is more than most people. Whatever, but end of the day, I may shower. Like, I'm a morning shower person, so, like, that's just how I am. But at night I'll do my moisturizing, and I'll put my night guard in because I grind my teeth at night. And like, that's pretty much my routine. I got, like, it's a simple routine, but it works for me, and I feel good. My skin looks pretty good compared to what it was, so, like, it's working out for me. So that's 15. Self-care and routine is key. Yeah, you need to, like, and the more you get into your routine, the less you got to think about it, and the more mental power you have to focus and direct towards other things throughout the day. 16. One good dollar is better than 100 pennies, right? If you have, if you have one good solid friend in your life, that is worth more than 100 acquaintances, or, I call it lukewarm friends. People are kind of like, hot or cold with you, but they're lukewarm. They're not the worst friend, but they're also not like a good friend, They're lukewarm. So having at least one good solid motherfucker in your life who's real, who's genuine, who meets the basic standards and even exceeds them is, like, that is priceless. Priceless. So 17, gratitude. We often lose sight of how good we have it when we allow ourselves to be consumed by a perspective of not good enough. Being alive is good enough. All the other things are extra to that. Life is the party. Anything else is, extra. Life is the main course. Anything else is extra, life is the gift. Anything else is extra, right? So be grateful that you're alive and here, That relationship is extra. The money is extra. If those things come, be extra grateful. Anything on top of you being alive right now is extra. And when you can see things from that perspective, like, it's almost like, a weight's lifted. It's like, I don't got to be all these things. Like, I'm alive. That's better than, a good chunk of people every day who don't make it to the end of the day. 18. Be okay with not always knowing what's to come. Life is exciting because we don't always know the outcome. Don't let the excitement of not knowing turn into anxiety. I said this at the beginning of this episode, but I love life. It's, I love when something unexpected happens. I love when something that I didn't expect happens. And I have that, and I keep that principle when I do things, for other people. Like, I like surprising other people. Some people don't like surprises, and it's like, okay, you're boring. Like, I've never had a surprise birthday party. I never had a surprise birthday party. And I remember this one year when I was younger, I told my Nan, I was like, Nan, I want a surprise birthday party. And she was like, well, it's not a surprise birthday party if you know about it. And I'm like, okay, but you can still like find a way to surprise me, Like, I love surprises. I love a good, here, I got you something. Or like, I like gifting things. So like if, I get something and I'm like surprised, like, here, I got you this, like, I love that. I love the unexpected. I love, I love all of that. So yeah, be okay with it. Don't let it, riddle you with anxiety, because it's okay not to know. And the truth is, you never really do know until, it's past. So clock it. 19, formal education is important. We have, the privilege of having world-renowned schools and universities, right? And here in Canada, if you're able to, and you're wanting and willing to, take advantage of it, get educated. There's definitely more to life than just education through formal schooling, but you can never really go wrong with a good degree. Clock it. 20. I am important, and so is everyone else. I am not better nor worse than anyone in terms of our equal inherent oneness. Yeah. And when I was able to be humble enough to say, I'm not worse than anyone, but I'm also not better than anyone, like, it really, I was able to, relax and breathe. I wasn't, sinking into this feeling of not being good enough, But then I was also not, letting my ego get to the point where I treat people bad because of their perceived value. Not that I ever really was that kind of person, but just being young, and that's kind of like the human ego is always looking for ways to put yourself above others. That this was an ego destroyer. I'm not worse, I'm not better. We're all one. We all got that inherent equality. And our 21st lesson, in no particular order, sometimes you got to do things just for you. It isn't always about other people. Sometimes it's just about doing what's best for you. And this is a strong sentiment that, I really heavily believe in, because family and friends and strangers, they're always going to think they know what's best for you. And sometimes the reality is, and more often than not, the case of it is they don't. Nobody is sitting in your body, in your shoes, with your perspective and your vision in life. And no one outside of yourself is going to be able to tell you what is best for you. Only you know that. Sometimes you got to do some digging. Sometimes you got to do some research, and sometimes you need you need to peer review your goals with like-minded people who have achieved what you have, or like who have achieved what you're after in life, to make sure you are on the right track, and that's okay. But anti whatever, person you barely spoke to, parent that hasn't achieved what you want out of life, they're gonna have their opinions. Everyone has a fucking opinion, but no one is sitting where you are. No one is where you are in life, in your body, in your shoes, in your situation. So no one's gonna 100% be able to tell you that this is what you got to do, when you got to do it, and whatever. Like, that information is set in your heart. Follow your heart. Find meaning in life. Your heart is the compass, and meaning is, the direction of, when you find meaning in life through your heart, like, you feel that meaning, you're going on the right direction. That's Gary Zakov on Oprah. That's what he says, and sometimes, and it's not going to make sense to everyone. Sometimes it's going to make sense to no one. Sometimes certain things that you do or go through, you just feel this calling in your soul, and you just got to do it. Like, when I was out on the streets in 2023, like, that was just something I had to do. Like, I don't really see myself choosing anything different if given the opportunity to, that was something I had to do for me. It didn't make sense to other people, and it probably doesn't make sense to other people, but it makes sense to me, and I know why I went through it. I know why I make decisions, and I make decisions based on what's best for me, especially when you're young, and when you don't have kids, because once you have kids, it's not about you anymore. It's about your kids, and making sure they're fed and that they are living a good life. So these are my 21 lessons that I've learned, that I think are very pertinent. There's plenty more lessons that I've learned, but these are like the main ones that really stuck out to me. So happy birthday to me. Thank you for listening. I'm at the park right now, and I hear some crunching behind me. So I'm gonna get the fuck up out of here before I meet whatever's over there. That sounds eerie. What the fuck is that? Yeah, fuck that. I ain't sticking around. And I'm not gonna go explore. I'm not the mystery gang. You know, I ain't Ghostbusters. But yeah, 21 lessons. Thank you for listening. Give us a follow on our social media platforms, my personal ones or the Late Night Cooldown platforms. I also have a tarot channel and tarot platforms where I'll be uploading content regularly starting soon. And within this week, there will also be a way for you to book and order tarot readings. So when that happens, I will update you through my social media platforms. Subscribe to my Substack to get weekly and bi-weekly information, and if anything important happens with the podcast, Substack will be the first place to know about it. When I start selling merch and when I drop limited edition apparel, Substack will get first notification. So thank you for listening and supporting the channel. This has been Kyle Antoine on my 21st birthday. Thank you for listening and goodbye.